The West believes there's only one truth. So first they said one truth is the church. Then they said one truth is science. Their brain cannot accommodate more than one truth. But human brain can accommodate multiple truths. So the Jains have a concept called anekantvad, different ways of seeing the world. So you can see the world in different ways. Like, do you live? No scientist can tell you whether there's life after death. But that's an important question to answer. Purpose of life, meaning of life. No scientist can ever answer that question, which means it remains in the subjective realm. And we usually prefer the inherited subjective truths, what our parents tell us, what our families tell us, what our tribes and clans tell us. If you wipe out mythology, you'll wipe out tribes. So essentially the rationalist is someone who's saying, he's enabling the colonial discourse of tribal cultural genocide. Because if you are rational, then all tribal art, craft, literature, rituals are wiped out because none of them are rational. They're based on imaginations and assumptions. So while it's easy to attack the mythology of established religions, we must remember that mythology is not just of the elite, it is also of the tribal communities. In traditional Indian society, you had the hermit and the courtesan living next to each other. So if you went to Puri temple, there would be the mathas where the jogis would live, and there would also be the Devadasis dancing and singing. But who has been wiped out? The Devadasis, who were part of temple rituals. So why were they wiped out? Because they were considered to be sex workers, exploited women. So depending on which school of thought you belong to, they were sex workers, so bad women, or exploited women. So you create stories to wipe that tradition out completely. But the yogis are still around. So is it a masculine discourse? Is it a colonial discourse? So our understanding of sexuality was seen as dirty by the Enlightenment discourse, because the West couldn't understand this country where people wore fine fabrics and revealing fabrics and almost semi-naked, and nobody felt, because it's a hot country, nobody thinks so much about clothes so much, and cover yourself, parts of your body. But for the Europeans, it was horrifying. They wore tight pants even in this hot weather. If you see images of Goras in Calcutta in the 18th century, they're dressed in these funny clothes. Hindutva is a word that was invented in 1894 by a Bengali gentleman called Chandranath Basu. So let's first get that word. So before the 1890s, this word did not exist. It's a new word. Just as the word Hinduism was created again in Bengal by Raja Ram Mohan Roy in 1816. So both these words, Hinduism and Hindutva, were created in the 19th century in response to the colonial rule which said define yourself, define yourself. Indians never felt the need to define themselves. Before that, you had this word called Hindu Dharma, which was separated from Turku Dharma, which was really a cultural difference between India and the Turks who were coming into India. Nobody understood this word religion as such. So to me, Hindutva is a political discourse it's a political movement which is trying to become powerful. It's a great story. It has nothing to do with the Vedas and the Puranas and the Upanishads and the Shastras. They are just on their own trip and they say whatever they want, which gets them the votes, which is good for them because that's a political, politicians have to do whatever it takes to get the votes. But if you want to understand the Shastras, you won't get it in Hindutva. You have to read books of Devdutt Pattanaik.